It is indeed. Is it still... here you go. Is it still raining? Okay, so perhaps... I'm talking about the river run, perhaps not today, but as I said, there will be lots of rain in the riverlands, river run, the Twin, etc. I seem to remember. Anyway, the cheer continues for Catelyn as this chapter opens on a funeral. All right, yay. So yeah, Catelyn IV is what we're reading today, dear listener, from A Storm of Swords. An interesting riverland tradition we come across here. No burial for Hoster Tully. It has to be a funeral pyre, and not just any funeral pyre, preferably a floating funeral pyre. Catelyn is thinking about the contrast with the traditions back in Winterfell, the dark crypts where the kings of the north of old are buried in casks under statues in their likeness, complete with swords and functional swords and everything. Nah. So much better what we have here in Riverrun, isn't it? Catelyn is thinking. So much healthier, and at least it's in the open air, so it's cheerful. You've got the weather for it. I know it sounds like a line out of Life of Brian, Monty Python's Life of Brian. Not to be confused with the several other lives of Brian. It's all very symbolic, though, because in Tullyland, the river is what gives the house strength naturally. So it's obvious that it's back to the river that the dead Tullys are consigned. Some foreshadowing here, Madame Catelyn. Never mind. Here, let me read you the passage. In a slender wooden boat, clad in shining silver armor, plate and mail. That's Hoster. Huh? His cloak was spread beneath him, rippling blue and red. His surcoat was divided blue and red as well. A trout, scaled in silver and bronze, crowned the crest of the great helm they placed beside his head. On his chest they placed a painted wooden sword, his fingers curled about its hilt. Mail gauntlets hid his wasted hands and made him look almost strong again. His massive oak and iron shield was set by his left side, his hunting horn to his right. There we get a bit of the old garment/accessory porn here. A lot of fuss is made around, food descriptions in the Song of Ice and Fire, but I think garment porn should also be given some attention. Garment accessory, whatever. Now, there's also timber and fuel here on the boat, cause funeral pyre, and the pallbearers. Well, not really pallbearers, rather boat pushers. There are seven, because Riverrun being devout to the faith, and they are Lord Bracken, Blackwood, these two presumably being kept well away from each other, I guess, because these two houses don't exactly see eye to eye. Then Lords Vance and Mallister, Sir Mark Piper, ever present. Oh, hi, Mark. Award yourselves 5 points if you got that reference. And Lame Lothar Frey. I puzzle over this final name. Why is there always a Frey wherever you go? And wherever there's one, there's another. There were those 3 Freys, Shay, Roose Bolton, remember, in Jaime 4. Now this Lothar Frey, let's take a closer look at him. Lame Lothar, who didn't earn his nickname because his jokes have weak punchlines, but rather because he's got a leg twisted at birth. So he's here, straight from the twins, to negotiate with old Walder Frey and Rob and the Tullys, to negotiate the whatever offer he is authorized to place on the table from old Walder Frey. and he will be negotiating that with Rob and the Tullys to hopefully restore the relations between the two houses. See, he's there in a diplomatic capacity. Back at the Twins, he serves as steward. He's basically in charge of logistics. I'm saying this now because it'll be important later. Now, what's interesting about the phrase is that there are so many, and they come in all shapes, sizes. Think of Big Walder and Little Walder, colors, depending on what house their mother happens to be from. Like this one, Lothar Frey. Lothar is the first son between Old Walder and his fourth wife, a certain Alyssa Blackwood. So he might even be somewhat related to this Titus Blackwood we saw pushing the boat in the river earlier on, or right now, rather. I'm not sure. The other Frey, oh yeah, that's right, I told you. He didn't come here alone. Wherever there's a Frey, there has to be another. And in fact, if you see a Frey who's not escorted by another, he's usually like a red shirt in the Star Trek original series. He's a goner. He's about to be crossed off the list of characters. Just ask Cleos Frey. Anyway, so the other Frey happens to be Old Walder's illegitimate son, one of many, because they're sorry. Because they're no, I'm not just feigning, outrage. I really have, really do need to clear my throat, because there's like a battalion, I think, of illegitimate sons from Old Walder's loins, but so he doesn't get to call himself Frey. His name is Rivers, Walder Rivers. Illegitimate offspring are called Rivers around here. Stone in the Vale, that's interesting. Snow in the north. Pike in the Iron Islands, or I guess whatever island one happens to have been born in. And later we'll learn that it's sand in Dorne, and although that's there is really no shame, there's no stigma on illegitimate offsprings in Dorne. Still, this Walder Rivers, just because he's not legitimate, doesn't mean that he's been held back in his career. He's a knight, for one thing, anointed knight. So you're supposed to call him Sir Walder Rivers, even though Edmure is unimpressed. In fact, he's in a rage because he's thinking, what is going on? Walder Rivers sends a cripple and a bastard? His words, not mine. Edmure. What would Ned Stark say if he was still alive? You basically said that if Eddard were to send Jon and Bran as envoys, he would basically insult the party he sent them to. Jon being an illegitimate son, or so the official narrative goes, and of course we know that Bran's leg situation is probably to be considered, in a worse state than lame Lothar Frey's. Anyway, so and besides, Edmure just gets the most superficial level of this sort of slight, this insult, if we can call it so. Old Walder sends these two minor members of the house, although it's debatable how minor they really are, as an affront, because he's still mad at Team Rob for that broken promise, that Rob was supposed to marry one of Walder's daughters, except that Rob went and married that Jane Westerling instead. In fact, if you remember, the last time the Freys were at Riverrun was when they stormed out of the place, shouting and gesticulating melodramatically like in a speeded-up silent movie. They were all like in a rage, learning that the engagement was off, and having their horses trample on the Stark banner as a further gesture of hatred towards the house. And if they could have, they would have even allowed their horses to take a massive dump on the banner. But horses aren't always in the mood, And this was back in Catelyn IV, the same book here that we're reading currently. And Catelyn herself seems to be wiser, She just chalks it up to old Walder being petty and vindictive, just dishing out what he thinks is a humiliation. But even Catelyn doesn't quite get the whole picture. If this whole thing was designed to have Catelyn assume that this was the worst act they could expect from Walder Frey, yeah, you know what? I would brace myself for worse. But I'm not going to say anything at all. I'll shut up now because I don't know if I've already mentioned that, but I have a no spoiler policy here. In this book series, I will only be looking back and not ahead. So it's actually Rob who is the most accommodating, and it better be, even to the point of allowing this Lothar Frey to be the seventh man to push the boat into the river, which meant he had to order Riverrun's Castellan, or is it Man-at-Arms? I can't remember. Desmond Grell to step aside. And that must have sung. Because, Desmond is like the head honcho, goes way back with the late Hoster, being there forever. More recently, we saw him having to reluctantly place Catelyn under house arrest, you remember, for releasing Jaime Lannister. Yeah. What a couple of screw-ups when you think about it. I mean, Catelyn and Robb, yeah? I get where they're coming from, but arguably these two combined have done more harm to the Northern cause than anyone else so far. And I'm not even mentioning capturing Tyrion back in Book 1 on the flimsiest possible evidence. I mean, really. Which set the whole thing in motion. One of the things that set the whole thing in motion. The war of the... Well, if not the war of the five kings, because, I mean, it's not capturing Tyrion that got Balon Greyjoy to crown himself king and, start reaving the coasts, the western coast of Westeros. But okay, the War of the Four Kings was arguably, in part kick-started by the abduction of Tyrion Lannister. But anyway, I digest. So the titular Catelyn is watching from her usual spot, the battlements. She's watched so many things from the battlements. It's like it's her popcorn corner. Wow. And she watches as these 7 guys launch the boat / pyre into the river until she's well into view from the battlements, she being the boat. At which point Edmure is urged by his uncle Brynden to fire an arrow. See, it's a flaming arrow, which is supposed to hit the boat and whoosh, fire. That's how the Tullys do it around here, pyrotechnics, pyrogymnastics, or a word like that. And trouble is, Edmure misses twice because he's got a giant hangover, we'll find out. And Brynden is all like, look, mate, do you want me to give it a shot? Literally, give it a shot. But he's like, nah, I got this. And swoosh, he misses again. So he's all like, no way. This is like, look, this is the first day we can officially remove the word acting before my title of Lord of Riverrun. So I can do my river dance. Yeah, did I tell you that the Tullys are so Irish in my humble opinion? Not just because of the actors who portrayed them in the HBO TV series. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, okay, this is like my first day as official Lord of Riverrun, and the first thing I do is like, is it another I'm good and proper Lord Edmure? And the first thing I do as Lord Edmure is hand this duty to my uncle, the Black Trout. I don't think. No, I think not. As in, uncle, why don't you do it? Yeah, here, you do it. Nah, as if I hadn't been treated like that all my life already, you know? With you lot always going, oh, you adorable ne'er-do-well, Edmure. Leave this sort of thing to grown-ups, why don't you? And with you cattling, sniggering in the back, admitting to yourself that you'll probably never get used to call me Lord. Okay, dear listener, I should probably say at this point that this whole dialogue is slightly paraphrased. But in fact, none of these thoughts is actually voiced, but that's kind of like the vibe right now. That's my interpretation of the vibe. It's the vibe, Your Honor. It's the vibe, Your Honor. If you got this reference, award yourself 10 points. So bada bing, bada boom. And the vibe. See, I lost my mark. It's all your fault. Okay. Yeah. So Ed, I'm gonna call him Ed, fires another arrow. But sure enough, in this sort of thing, you know, the angrier and impatient he gets at himself, and the more, you know, while everybody around him looking at him as if to say, it's all right, man. It happens to every... Wow! Wait a minute. Do you think this could be a connection to that other chapter where we learned that Tom Seven Strings wrote a mocking song about Edmure not being able to perform sexually, having gotten wasted drunk? Area 4, in case you're asking. The parallels are there. You know? The floppy trout, the floppy fish, and the not so straight arrow. All right, okay. So anyway, sure enough, Edmure. You know, I'm still struggling with that U, how it's pronounced. He thrusts the bow at Brynden, and he goes, why you do that with disdain, you know, and better hurry before the boat gets out of sight. So whoosh, the blackfish manages at first shot. I mean, yeah, of course. Everybody claps at the blackfish. He's so awesome, he's so badass, you know what I'm saying? Hoster is now ablaze in the middle of the river. The Red Fork. Yeah, it took me a while to recall which river we're talking about. We have a blazing Hoster Tully floating on the Red Fork, and even though it's not written, I like to imagine a slow clap, you know, polite, you know, kind of like Wimbledon style, like on a side while you tilt your head slightly. Only Edmure giving his uncle a slow, nervous clap. I bet he's looking at his uncle like that. Well, if I could just push you into the river, Catelyn reaching out to grab her brother's hand in a consoling mode. It's all right. As if to say, you know, it's all right. It happens to a lot of men. Yeah, the parallels are so there. But he's actually gone somewhere else. So he's just, she grasps at thin air because he clutches thin air because he's off, you know. He's actually gone somewhere else, cartoon mumbling to himself, bloody wind, got lucky, and so on, you know, kicking cans. They're happy to be cans somewhere. And he's actually walking back indoors because there's lots of items on the agenda now that he's Lord of Riverrun, with all the knights, you know, walking with him, offering condolences and whatnot. Cat and Brynden are left behind, and the latter reminding Cat for like the 100th time that Hoster himself, you know, had missed his first shot at their father's funeral. But Catelyn is actually thinking, but Edmure is messed up right now, you know. He has to appear tough and resolute and all that, but he was dead drunk last night and cried his eyes out for the the what do you call it, closure, the closure he never had with his father. In fact, you know what? He seems to feel that his dad's demise has thrust him into a new game that's too big for him. And he doesn't exactly have all the answers right now. You tell me if that doesn't remind you of, you know who? King Bob! You know, not Bob, King Bob as in King Bob in the Minions movie. But yeah, that sounds familiar. Although, I mean, I guess you could say that King Rob has more of a justification for that. Being barely 16 and, you know, arguably the shoes of the king in the north, as the great John would say it, are, you know, slightly larger, you know, to wear than just Lord of Riverrun. But never mind, moving on. Yeah, last night, in fact, in his cups, last night Ed did ask Kat if Foster mentioned him. Did my father mention my name in his last breath? And Catelyn doesn't have the heart to tell him that no. He just kept repeating the same word over and over again, Tansy. And which is Hoster's major regret, this Tansy, huh? You know what? It's a bit like Rosebud, isn't it? Rosebud. Yeah, except that we readers, even first-time readers at this point, have been able to put the pieces together, knowing mainly from those area POV chapters that Tansy is A, the main ingredient for moon tea, which B, is drunk to get rid of unwanted pregnancies, and Hoster being all like, forgive me, Tansy. And if you remember, there was also, this is from a different Catelyn POV chapter, but you can still have sons, and true-born this time. That's what he said the first time he uttered the word Tansy. So we gather that Hoster must have administered Tansy to a certain character who happened to be expecting a base-born baby. And, you know, if he had been coherent, he would have said something like, when you see her, tell her I'm sorry about the Tansy. She'll understand. So, you know, you draw your conclusions, dear listener, if you happen to be that first-time reader. As I said, not going to spoil it for you. But I doubt if at this point, with all this info, all this pile of info that's been dumped here in our previous books, I doubt if there's anything left to spoil. Who could this character possibly be, you know? And in fact, in a typical threefold revelation style, you know, when George R. R. Martin drops subliminal hints as to what he's talking about, Liza Tally / Arryn is mentioned a couple of paragraphs later. Catelyn thinking that she still hasn't replied to her letters. Yeah, she couldn't make it to the funeral. Because she and her father are not on speaking terms, I think. Hence the forgive me. I mean, really, I told you, there's very little to spoil as far as this aspect of the Riverrun-based part of the saga of Ice and Fire is concerned. And speaking of King Bob, yeah, that's what I'm going to call him now, okay? There he is. Yeah, there he is. Hello, Rob, standing among his bannermen. But it's his bride Jane Westerling / Stark who breaks the silence. Oh, hi, Mama Catelyn. Yeah, hi. I didn't really know Hoster, but I bet he was such a swell guy, no? Huh? Yeah, of course he was. Cat, you know, patting Jane on the head a bit. And she goes, you know, yeah. But Catelyn's main concern, speaking of letters, is that she still has no news from Cleos either. Cleos and Brienne, dispatched some time ago to King's Landing. Cleos having promised he would ask Tyrion to send a raven once they arrived, to assure Cat that everything was going smoothly. Brienne was on her way to Riverrun, yes, with Sansa and Arya. That was, the ideal scenario in Catelyn's mind, except that shockingly for this series, things didn't quite go according to plan. And, well, for one thing, no Cleos, no Raven, and Brienne and her captive Jaime are in fact both captives in turns at Harrenhal as we speak. And it's at this point that this Lothar Frey enters the scene and he pulls Rob's sleeve, kind of like a child. Hello, Rob. Hi, sorry, I mean, Your Grace, yeah? And Rob must be all like, dude, yeah, you're getting me all wet. Because it was just, yeah, forgot it. When you push the boat in the river at some point, you'll have water up to your nipples, your nippular area. Or even higher, depending on how tall you are, really. So, yeah, dude, you're getting me all wet. What do you want? Splash, splash. Oh, sorry, splash, splash. Yeah, because it is soaked from his torso down. And, you try and push a floating funeral pyre into the Red Fork sometime, yeah? But yeah, when he goes, yeah, Your Grace, yeah, he goes, yeah, there would be that little matter we need to discuss, yeah? No worries, we come in peace and all that, Look, my dad Walder, yeah, he understands your mistake. Hell, he was also young once, and he knows what it's like to lose your head to beauty, yeah. But no, seriously, can you imagine that? Old Walder Frey saying stuff like that. Making this little, kind of like, cute little mouth. Oh, he's lost his head to beauty. Penny for every time I did that. Oh, the folly of youth. Why, I myself committed many an act of foolishness for love. Yeah, right. Old Walder Frey, who's this sort of like Palpatine character, really, I myself committed many foolish acts out of love. Okay, I don't do a very good Emperor Palpatine, but, you get you really don't see that happen, And that's how Rey was conceived. Believe it or not. Yeah, you know what? That's a part that's the a plot of the Star Wars sequels that I really don't buy. I mean, seriously, how did he? Maybe how did Palpatine conceive Rey? Seriously, dude. No, I don't see that happen. You know what? I don't entirely buy. Okay, let's get back to River Run and indeed the twins. I don't entirely buy the fact that that Walder Frey really said that. It's Lothar, and neither does Kat. She's thinking, yeah, right, Lothar. God bless you for, sugarcoating this, but yeah. You're just making this shit up, aren't you? You're just making it up as you go. So yeah, but Robbie's all like, sure thing, Lothar. Let's have a little chat at dinner. Why don't we? I've always wanted our houses to be, like super buddies, super friendly and chummy. So I never meant any, disrespect and whatnot. So when they're finally alone, Rob turns to Catelyn, because apparently there's something he would like to discuss with her. But only after he spent some time with these Westerlings / Spicers. Catelyn takes a look at her new, in-laws. Somehow it looks to her as if they're Rob's new surrogates, for friends and family. The Squire Rolam being like a new Bran. Reynold, kind of like a new Theon / Jon Snow. Theon keeps being mentioned, huh? And, is this Sybil Spicer, Sybil, like his new mother? Catelyn is thinking, over my dead body. No, she's not really thinking that, but Well, you know what I mean, right? If you're not a first-time reader. Anyway, sorry, shut up, salsa. No, but a major plot point is being discussed here, you see, because Cat remembers when earlier on news of Duskendale reached Rob, who just couldn't believe his ears. You know, the raid on Duskendale. And at the time, Rob, when receiving the news, he just went cartoonishly, puzzled. He went, what the hell were Helmut Tallhart and Robert Glover, two of my most loyal bannermen, what were they thinking to achieve in Duskendale? What has Duskendale got to do with anything? A town of zero strategic importance? What are they, stupid? And now that they've been intercepted by armies loyal to the crown, Randall Tarley having defeated and killed Tallhart, and Robert Glover now a captive in the hands of Gregor the Mountain, I have basically lost like a third of my infantry. I mean, I am spelling it out a bit more clearly than Rob actually does articulate it here in this chapter. But yeah, essentially, that was it. And in fact, maybe that was precisely the point, huh? Because we readers are aware of a couple of points Rob wasn't told about. First, it was Roose Bolton who ordered this pointless assault back in A Clash of Kings. Area 10. Yes, I put on my thinking cap here. So why didn't anyone tell Rob that was the case, that was what happened? Yeah, well, look, blame it on Rob. Rob. Blame it on Roose, man. What do I know? The messenger could have said. Second point, back in King's Landing, Tywin seemed to have way too much inside knowledge of this order from Roose. I mean, that's how he knew to send Tarley and the Mountain to intercept Tallhart and Glover in this futile enterprise. And I'm reiterating futile because Tyrion as well, in that same chapter, Tyrion 1, in this same book, is calling it futile in this exchange with his father. And he himself wonders why were these northern armies dispatched to Duskendale? And how do you know so much about it, Dad? That's what emerges from Tyrion 1. So yeah, we could chalk the whole thing up to Roose Bolton's incompetence, I guess, costing Rob a third of his foot army, infantry, the most the most loyal Stark bannermen at that, and Tywin somehow having a super efficient intelligence network. So that's how he got to find out about it. But in that same exchange with his son Tyrion, Tywin informs the latter that some battles are won by quills and ravens, as in letters, communications, just as he was in the process of composing some of those aforementioned letters. I'll leave it at that. I promised no spoilers, but I did say I reserve the right to look back in this series. So I just looked back at past chapters. Hashtag just placing some pieces together. By the way, Gilbert Glover, who was right next to Rob when the news were delivered, was all pissed off about his brother being held a prisoner by the Lannisters, but Rob had an answer to that. He said, all right, do you know what? Let's have a prisoner exchange. Don't you worry about that. Do we still have any Lannisters in our cell? Please tell me one of those twins is still alive, yeah? These are those Lannister twins that were discussed at the small council meeting. Where are the twins? How are the twins doing? Any news of the twins? Kevin Lannister's sons. And later on in Tyrion 3, when Tywin informs Tyrion that he's going to have to marry Sansa Stark, he goes over various other options of closely related Lannisters that might be alternative candidates to marry Sansa if Tyrion should refuse. But, and that's what Tywin says, unfortunately the twins, Willem and Martin, are unavailable as they're in a cell at River Run, held as hostages by Robb Stark. This is just to remind you about these two twins, yeah? Two twins, how many more did you expect? But now, unfortunately, there's not two, actually. There's fewer than two, which means there's only one left. Willem is no longer in the list of characters. Rickard Karstark saw to that. But Martin is still alive and sort of well. Alive and kind of well. And so there you go. Robb goes, no worries, mate. We'll swap that Martin Lannister for your brother Robert. So Bob's your uncle. Yeah, that's me, Bob. I'm your uncle. Oh, thank you, King Bob. Yeah, no, that's a relief. Seriously. No, thank you kindly. And that's going to happen, actually. The prisoner swap is going to happen. By the way, before I get snapped out of this huge flashback, at that small council meeting I just mentioned, Davin, that's his name, Davin Lannister, son of this Stafford, Tywin's cousin, is said to be regrouping to march against River Run as soon as Robb gets there. I don't know if you remember that. Should we expect him any moment now that Robb is there? No, but let's keep an eye on that, because this Davin guy, Davin, may be put on hold until the situation is a bit more favorable. That's all I'll say about that. And while we're at it, let's keep an eye on these Glover guys, because they will gain more prominence in future books. Anyway, this is where we hear the famous lines from Robb. I have won every battle, yet somehow I'm losing the war. Why, that's ever so puzzling. And is it the first time he says that? Or someone else had said it for him? I can't quite... Anyway, he does have a point. I mean, the Iron Men are holding all those key strategic spots in the north. Things are not looking too rosy, huh? Ironically, Iron Man being a pain in the ass to Stark is a Marvel Comics joke. Okay, all right, I'll move on. And so I bet Rickard Karstark's last words are still ringing and stinging in Robb's head. You're now king of mine, boy. They all talk like that, yeah. The Stark bannermen and former bannermen. The king who has lost the north, I'll tell you. Boy. So, right before he lost his head. Yes, yeah, I might have lost the north, mate, but you're going to lose something more, relevant to your existence. You're about to lose your entire existence, Rickard. And that was it. This is the sound of Mr. Karstark being beheaded. So anyway, that's what Robb is saying. Those naughty Ironborn holding Winterfell, because that's the latest news we have from Winterfell. No other developments. And Moat Cailin, although someone assures me it's pronounced Moat Calan. Not to mention Torrens Square and Deepwood Motte, plus Bran, Rickon, Arya, Sansa. Oh yeah, that's right. I gotta tell you this thing about Sansa. Yeah, sorry, we have we're no longer in flashback mode. We're back, at right here, right after Hoster Tully's funeral, and I gotta tell you this thing about Sansa. Yeah, says Robb. Because before I forget, Sansa, you see, is now Mrs. Lannister, because, funny story. Remember Tyrion, yeah? Swell guy, very articulate. You had him captive in the Eyrie, yeah? Does that jog your memory? Yeah, you nearly flung him out of the moon door to his, plunging to his death. Ah, yeah, Tyrion, yeah, sure. What about, He married her. Yeah. For God's sake, really? Man. Back in the Erie, he swore he would return my daughters if I gave him back his own brother, Jamie, his precious little Jamie. Or Jaime, as they call him in Spain. And now that I've done just that, even though I'm really not sure whether Brienne did reach King's Landing with Jamie, as a captive, as a token, bargaining chip and whatnot. And now that I've done just that, he goes and marries Sansa. This is all Catelyn, going a bit apeshit. And can you blame her? See, once again, Catelyn jumps to conclusions, though, because vis-a-vis Tyrion. I mean, I can't blame her reaction, but really stop and think every now and then. Catelyn, stop going, a mother somehow just has to do this type of thing. I reason as a mother. I rush to conclusions like a mother would. I know, I get it, but think about it. Think about, sometimes, it might be a good idea to put yourself in some other person's shoes, such as Tyrion's tiny shoes, because it never occurs to her that he might have been forced into this shotgun wedding. Maybe Tyrion is not to blame, but rather his father Tywin. Meanwhile, Robb sees the bottom line. Yeah. Well, mother, it's because the Lannisters have figured that if I get whacked, then Sansa becomes heir to Winterfell. Bada bim, bada boom. See? That's the strategy. And this is where Cat goes in a total panic mode. If anything befell you, I would go mad, Robb. And I'll shut up here, okay? Because, I said about spoilers and no spoilers. And so on and so forth. Sorry, I had to do this. There was an insect. I had to shoo him. Shoo, as in shoo. Right, where was I? See? Maybe lose my... No, okay, if anything befell you, I would go mad, Robb. And she says to him, and which is not at all what's going to happen at some point. I'll just say, let's keep this line in mind. Yeah, that's all I'll say. Even though I've said too much already. No, but really, Catelyn is pleading with him. Hey, I got an idea. Yeah, how about you bend the knee, yeah? To the crown in King's Landing. There's no shame in that. Back in the days, Torrhen Stark did bend the knee to Aegon the Conqueror. As you can hear, my cat clearly agrees. You should be catching insects instead of being a pain in the ass. So yeah, it's happened before in history. You kind of learned that at school, didn't you? So it's kind of pointless to remind you of that. But yeah, Torrhen Stark did bend the knee to Aegon the Conqueror. So and that's kind of like the whole, title King in the North was decommissioned, you might recall. But Robb won't have none of that. Yeah, well, it's all well and good, Mum, but Aegon didn't kill Torrhen's father. Aha! You see? At the end of the day, that this whole thing still hinges upon revenge. Come on. Everything else might have been an afterthought, the whole King in the North, restoration and all that. But really, what's still in the back of Robb's mind is revenge. Because I had a whole discussion on that in my previous Catelyn POV chapter commentary. Does Robb even have an endgame beyond vengeance? Does he really still think he can keep fighting until he eventually marches to King's Landing, beat the crap out of the current royal apparatus, until Joffrey's all like, all right, you got me, well done. Okay, peace treaty, here it is, where do I sign? You get to keep the North, call yourself king thereof, and we'll have this uneasy alliance until further notice. Is that his idea? Is that his endgame? Peace at those terms? Northern independence and Joffrey still on the throne? Because even if he does recapture the North from the Ironborn, which is like his immediate goal right now, he'll still have to repel attacks from the king's armies, right? which was why I said that it would have made more sense to ally himself with Stannis right from the start. In a Game of Thrones, Catelyn XI, thank goodness for my notes, that option was proposed by, drumroll, Edmure. Edmure said, okay, so why don't you side with Stannis? Literally, Catelyn 11 in a Game of Thrones, book 1. To which Rob literally answered, I don't know. Should I do that? I mean, he must have known that the main accusation his father had been convicted for was because he was plotting to put Stannis on the Iron Throne, his father Eddard, you know? So it would have, Ned wanted to do that, not because he liked the guy, not because he liked Stannis, but because his sense of duty compelled him, having found out that Joffrey wasn't technically a legitimate heir to Robert. Stannis was, in his book. So it would have made sense for Rob to continue on his father's legacy, unless A, Rob believed the whole twincest story to be a lie, even that part which is incidentally was true, or B, that his rationale was like, yeah, well, I'm not my father, I have my own, things to pursue. But then, it was the great John. I mean, in the middle of that, so what do we do? Who do we side with? Vengeance. Everything is so confusing. In the middle of all that, it was the great John, a grown-ass adult, who just bypassed all rational arguments and went straight for the emotional, my lords! This is how I think he sounded. Here is what I say to these kings. And he spat on the floor. Whoa, chill, man. No. Before coining his most viral catchphrase, he spat a few times. And the catchphrase being, King in the North! Ha, ha, ha! I toast to that. Whoa. And everybody just clapped. At which point it was just too late to go, whoa, no, hang on a sec. Let's take it a few steps back. All that is all very well and good, but it still leaves the question as to who's going to sit on the Iron Throne unaddressed. Yeah? And Mark Piper's rationale for not siding with Stannis was that while Renly could potentially be backed by up to 6 or 7 of the greatest houses, all Stannis had was a better claim, really. So how is that a reason for throwing away any chances of an alliance with both kings and go solo like Rob did? These are just a daisy chain of bad ideas. But anyway, just occurred to me, tinfoil hat theory. I'm a loud one in every commentary. The Great John is secretly in cahoots with Tywin. There, you heard it here first. The Great John pushed Rob to crown himself king in the North. No. There's rational. It has legs, this tinfoil hat theory, because he's still bitter about the direwolf Grey Wind biting off 2 of his fingers. There, everything can be justified in his crazy nut conspiracies. Theories, not conspiracy. There's not a conspiracy, but there could be, because if the Great John and Tywin said, okay, you go for that, you persuade him to crown himself king in the North, everything will, everything will go down, will go to shit from there. No, but seriously, revenge. Yep, that's all it's all about, revenge. And he goes, yeah, well, Mum, the Lannisters did have, unlike Torrhen didn't have his father whacked by Aegon the Conqueror. But the Lannisters did have my father whacked. Unless you've forgotten that. See, he's all pissy about it right now. And Catelyn is thinking, oh, I could spank the hell out of you right now, boy. King or not. But she doesn't say that. Nor does she spank him. So Rob just turns around and heads off somewhere. Whew. And I can imagine him like whew, turning his head whew, and his hair going all whew, fluffy in the wind. And he just turns around and heads off somewhere. Not before drawing his sword for some reason, because there's no one to fight there. But maybe it just makes him feel, secure. This new version of a pillow, comfort pillow type thing. He's got a sword. And then we finally get to the phrase at dinner. This Lothar Frey dude is the champion of small talk and courtesy. Well done on everything. Oh, yeah, you Tullys. Never failed to impress me. Oh, is that pheasant? Compliments to the chef. Oh, and then my condolences for Bran and Rickon, Oh, and what's that? Another sip of mead? Don't mind if I do. How about this crazy weather we're having, huh? Am I right? So this is Lothar. Walder Rivers, on the other hand, just grunts when he says anything at all. The good cop, bad cop trope is very much alive and well at that dinner table. And now it's time for serious talk. So let's put on our frowns. The first topic is Walder and Walder, which kind of sounds like a law firm. But it's Walder. Yeah, no, let's not forget. Big Walder and Little Walder, who are respectively small and large, confusingly, are these two Frey kids who, you'll remember, were wards at Winterfell. Their different personalities and attitudes were not fleshed out in super-duper detail in A Clash of Kings, because that's where we last saw them. Suffice it to say that they both, more often than not, behaved like Freys, i.e. like a pair of little shits. And but other than that, they were mainly okay, playmates for Bran and Rickon, usually talking behind Jojen's and Mira's back. Those frog eaters will suck. But yeah, in general, Team Bran and the Frey kids mostly spent their time within the walls of Winterfell, sort of tolerating each other. Yeah, they're kids, what are you going to do? But it's when Theon conquered Winterfell in that ill-advised enterprise that the paths of these two different teams, Team Bran and Team Frey Juniors, Walder and Walder, went in two different directions. It all climaxed in that big Reek reveal, when the character Reek turned out to be none other than Ramsay Snow in disguise. And, like a proper villain, Ramsay started monologuing, giving us a bit of exposition on how he had faked his own death right before knocking Theon unconscious and raiding Winterfell Castle with an army that must have been provided by his daddy Roose, because Bolton soldiers from the Dreadfort. Oh, that same Dreadfort army which slaughtered a whole bunch of soldiers loyal to the Starks who had come to recapture the castle, including Rodrik Cassel. So yeah, that's what happened way back in the Clash of Kings. So that's all new info to Cat and Rob. They were isolated as they have been until now. So at this point, both Cat and Rob must be making big faces. Rob, oh God, yeah. Rob slams his fist on the table with rage. Catelyn catches a glimpse of a tear in his eye, remarking in passing how that crown of Rob's must be getting heavier and heavier on his head. Anyway, we readers who did read A Clash of Kings, we know that the last thing Theon saw before passing out was Ramsay ordering his men to save, and I quote, "save the Freys and burn the rest. Burn it all." Unquote. Right before proceeding to sack Winterfell. This was in the last Theon chapter, Theon 6. And then we had a follow-up from Bran, last chapter in A Clash of Kings, indeed. Bran, who, came out of the crypts with Team Bran surveying the conditions of Winterfell after they all emerged, Rickon, Osha, Hodor, the Reeds. And it was basically in ruins, deserted, ghastly place, really, in dire need of repair, shall we say. So let's see in how many... So that's what we know happened, right? Let's see in how many ways the phrase give this whole story the, shall we say, the Western mainstream media treatment. Okay, so first of all, Sir Roderick Cassel was slain, note the use of the passive voice. We don't hear exactly who slew him, yeah? Yeah, he's a victim of the conflict, Western mainstream media. What are you going to do? Victim of the conflict. He was slain. And also the whole thing was Theon's doing, yeah? Okay, the blame is completely put on Theon. He's the one who put the castle to the torch in this Frey narrative. Yeah, that's interesting too. Every now and then they insert all these little caveats, Oh, there is much confusion in any war, Madame Catelyn. Every now and then, they say this, yeah, there were many, many false reports. They really do sound like mainstream media, don't they? The reports could not be independently verified. However, it transpired that all those civilians were killed by the Ironborn and the Ironborn alone. And it was Ramsay Snow who saved as many women and children as possible, including the young lives of Big and Little Waldor. Lothar Frey, BBC. Yeah, there you go. That's it. So, yeah. And Rob is a bit incredulous at the news. Wait, what? Ramsay? You see, even he doesn't buy this old mainstream media narrative. Of course, the mainstream media, the real mainstream media in our universe has the advantage of being able to repeating the same news over and over again, so we all believe what they tell us. And in this case, Rob, even at 16 years old, he goes, whoa, last I checked, Ramsay Snow was a psychopathic monster. Now you're painting a picture of him as a hero. Also, I find it funny, well, perhaps not necessarily funny, haha, but funny how Lothar Frey is saying, yeah, well, your loyal master-at-arms, Roderick Cassel, was whacked. Oh, and Maester Lewin too. Yeah, sorry. Plus a whole bunch of civilians. But hey, look at the bright side. My two nephews, Big and Little Waldor, are safe and sound at the Dreadfort. Huh? To which Catelyn must be thinking, yeah, well, you know how many tosses I give about your shitty nephews? No, she doesn't actually say that, obviously. But that's what she's thinking. And in all of this, we still don't know what happened to Theon. Huh? What's up with that, dear listener? Anyway, the matter at hand is, of course, a marriage counteroffer. Edmure Tully with this Roslyn Frey. Roslyn, the youngest of old Waldor by Bethany Rosby, which is kind of acceptable to the phrase now that Edmure is Lord of Riverrun, you see. A few conditions, though. Here, let me read you the quote. There's the condition that the King's Grace apologize for the insult done to House Frey in his royal person. In his royal person, he has to go and, to go there. Face to face. And the marriage has to take place, like, super pronto. So, bottom line is, Team Rob has to travel to the Twins, the seat of House Frey, ASAP. It's Edmure who has some reservations. He goes, whoa, what's the hurry? I mean, shouldn't I first, sort of get to meet the gal? See how it goes on the first date. But Walder Rivers won't have none of that. You need someone to speak bluntly. Walder Rivers is there. He's all like, what, mate? You want to count her teeth now, huh? Don't you worry about getting to know Roslyn. There'll be plenty of time for that when you two are married, okay? And Lothar is all polite and stuff, and he's like, he shrugs his shoulders. What are you going to do? You must excuse Walder Rivers, he's a bit like that. But yeah, seriously, yeah. Papa Walder, Becca the twins, has become mistrustful of long engagements, shall we say. And Rivers interjects again. Yeah, gee, I wonder why, huh? Yeah, I mean, why could he possibly? Anyway, but we're in the middle of a war. Is Brendan's timid objection that does he know we're kind of like fighting a war? And to which Lothar has also got a reply. He goes, yeah, well, precisely, Let's seal the deal before, God's forbid, anything should happen to Edmure. You must admit this Lothar does have a tight case, So once in private, the phrase dismissed. Rob and the Tullys have a sort of like a family council meeting, Edmure is all bitter that he's basically been told that his word is worthless, basically. And that this marriage had better go ahead right away before Lord Edmure changes his mind. But everyone is looking at Edmure like, come on, man. Just do this thing for us, yeah? Take one for the team, for this alliance that we need, yeah? And notice how the news that Winterfell fell was carefully planted there by Lothar in perfect timing to make Rob feel even more lost and in dire need of allies, yeah? Nothing by chance here. So Rob is like, yeah, look, mate, I can't order you to marry this chick, but yeah, you'll marry her. I must retake the north. And surely the alliance with the Frey is exactly what I need to pursue that goal. And no harm can possibly come from that. And Catelyn contributes. Yeah, this marriage has to happen, mate. Yeah, come on. You know he's right. You know it makes sense, mate. They're all singing the same tune, basically, with an added refrain from Brendan Tully. Nephew, you did say something of making amends for your battle of the fords. Yeah, Edmure is like, I said amends, but I didn't mean that. Right? Yeah, I meant like do some crazy stance, balancing on one foot for like a week, penitence with the monks. Okay, nobody's laughing. All right, okay. So to cut a long story short, Edmure accepts, and he's going to marry this Roslyn Frey. And thus, dear listener, ends Catelyn IV from A Storm of Swords. Dense and thick with plot, developments. I love these kind of chapters, And talking to you. I enjoy talking to you. And if you enjoy listening to me and you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to do all the things that people do under such circumstances, or feel free to explore this channel, left and right, and you'll see many other similar commentaries, and or feel free not to do any of those things. It's a free continent. In the meantime, I myself look forward to talking to you again, reading the next chapter, which happens to commenting on it, which happens to be a Davos POV chapter. So there you go. Meanwhile, I bid you farewell.